It's February 14th, on the grid. It's 2022. The year is 2022. I'm going through my son's schoolwork folder, and they have something here through, I'll just go by 3 letters. The agency's acronym, I don't know, but the initials are DOE. It says Department of Education for New York City. That's their logos. Says they're doing something with an IEP, which I'd like. Again, it's an integrated city service. My son Benjamin had one. I think it's state, perhaps, even though I thought it was supposed to be state, even though it says New York City. But the IEP followed Ben out to Suffolk. But again, I'm not real sure how this works. So Nucci's getting one now. And then in his folder comes home some kind of whatever. It says Unrest in the American Colonies. Now, this is the first time I've ever heard of this. It's 7 articles. It's a change in thinking. The quarrel between the colonists and the British begins. The French and Indian War. The Stamp Act. Parliament stumbles. And then a tea party in Boston. The colonists resist. Again, it sounds like this has already taken place or is currently taking place. I don't really know. I have to try to read this and orient myself because this is really confusing, and all of my children, this is like the first time this is even being addressed. First 3 children didn't get anything to do with this until I started going on YouTube and started explaining just how confusing New York State's become, or New York City's become, after losing the house and whatnot. I have heard of a tea party in Boston, only that they had ships and they literally took the boxes or crates and threw the tea into the water, the boxes, and then the cargo it was more like an economic rebellion is what it sounded like. But I think that was something to do with tax stamps. But again, it's always this like this cartoon, like if it's a comic, it's like this cartoon bubble of key phrases. But in my adulthood, I'm thinking about those adult phrases, and I'm like trying to chase actual, like, where they could fit in strategically could be of value, those words, because it's not like they've taught us any semblance of assembly or how they're assembling things or updates. I mean, like, this is coming from the elementary school. Thank goodness. At least it's something. But then, I don't know who is putting out this education. Which ministry is this? Then I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, so now on the teleportation device or the television, and in my elementary, when we did current events out of a newspaper with clippings that the teacher collected for whatever reason, I guess for proof, there was something called a USSR. USSR. Now SR, they said, was Soviet Republic. That's all we got. And there was one name associated at the time, which was Gorbachev. And then where we were, there was Reagan, who was doing the Air Force measurements of our height, weight, athletic ability and so on and so forth at the elementary school. That was the extent of, and if in my adulthood, SR stands for senior. So if it's like the U.S. Senior Associates of something, why did that break? They said, I mean, here they said it broke apart. I can't verify that, but, and then they said something about, then all of a sudden something appeared as USA. I don't, like, when did that happen and why? And who was involved in that? I mean, like, my parents don't really know. And it wasn't taught in the schooling system. It's not on the state media. Or, I mean, it's very confusing. Then I'm looking at this and I see a tea party in Boston. Lou tells me tonight that there was something that just happened with a Tea Party and a Republican Party. I'm like, what does that mean, Lou? I was like, last I heard, it was a Tea Party in Boston. They were upset about cargo shipment and things went into the harbor. That's the last education that we got here. I was like, so what is this? And then I'm looking and for crossover on key op phrases to try to thatch a reality together. The television, the state media of, I don't know what state it is, because again, I look on multiple calendar grid systems. They've got imperfections in the grid, like they're not agreeing between my father's last homeland before America, which was Italy. Then I've got something called a boys' town. And then I've got Lynn has something with a USA on it. And it gets confusing because I don't know who's in charge of our calendar system as a country or even as a state. I mean, who feeds us? Here it says Parliament stumbles. They didn't even mention anybody had a parliament. I don't know what that means. But as far as in this, they said that the Winter Olympics in Beijing, they said it's like a bubble before 2022 in Bayside Station where I am. They started opening the humans. I don't know what their demography or what their affiliation is, or sponsorship or foundations or origin, I'm not sure. But it could be within the same whatever. The umbrella, perhaps. The locals or non-locals, whatever, started opening businesses, calling it bubble tea, BUBBLETEA, with these like gelatinous, they say they're fruit flavored, almost like a jelly or gelatin, then they fill tea on top of it. And I'm like, because I mean, I have this saying, I've said it since I was a kid, no, I'm not a fan, FAN, or it's not my cup of tea, TEA. Just in like, I don't really want to discuss it, because that sounds like it's a powder keg. So I'm going to try to read through this, but again, I don't know if, or how to even find out if this is approved media. Like it would be Kathy Hochul's office, or Governor Kathy Hochul. I don't know where she receives information from, but that's how frightening this is that I'm so unprepared for this, which makes my children behind the curve and behind the bell curve, they call it, or behind the everything, because I don't know how to even homeschool them, because I have no instruction, or I've had so very little of it, at least in congruence that makes sense. Lou said something, mentioned something, or T Free in 1975 mentioned something about China and T-bills, and I'm like, okay, now that goes back to Tea Party, Boston, T-bills. So they own debt, or is it debt relief? And then how does that slow boat from China with cargo on it, since everything seems to be labeled, is that just an approved thatch of words for some larger powder keg that then it is really confusing at this level of left out and left behind. I just don't know how it got this bad. I don't. I mean, I've been in isolation or whatever for most of it, and then on the television tonight, it says that NYPD, some guy followed some, or whatever, followed some woman home and murdered her on the street. It's like, oh my gosh, but that happened in Manhattan, but close enough that it is just a scary whatever. I mean, I don't even know how to begin. There's like, it's not like I had this, it's not like I went to college, I did go to college, but it's not like I went to college, got a job, had excess income that I could put away, had a house, had vacations, had business trips, had 401k and stock option plans. Like, whatever little there was that I was able to get within any given square on the system, within a year to two, it was totally used and gone, because it's been so pitiful, the amount of numbers that I've been able to. And then I heard something about crypto, and I'm like, now is that the crypt that they've been stealing from on the way in, and then suing one another, like in some weird fashion, like in some weird game to take from one another? It gets really confusing. I'm at such a loss, and I feel like at such a disadvantage. It's a daunting task, and I'm just like, I it says American colonies. I'm gonna go off of, I heard that when I was little. But now, like, where did builders go? And the real people to ask for help in order to protect your family and to take part in building. I don't understand how a USSR could be broken apart or talked about as if it was broken apart, and then all of a sudden a USA pops up, and then all of a sudden nobody can find work or how to feed their family, or, I mean, and people just disappear, like large groups of population. I have no idea what people do on Long Island for income. I don't. I don't know how they survive. I've been saying it for a long time, but there's no, like, I know I saw on TV, like, there's some areas where they have, like, a factory and everybody works at the factory. It becomes their social life. It becomes their everything. They support it. It supports them. I have no idea where that would even be possible in this area, and how this area was then supposed to work. It's really confusing. It's star 1978, star 8378. Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.